thing first. Okay, let's see if let me start sharing screen 3 share. Let me know if you can see my screen or is it not showing? I don't know.
Yeah, we can see it. I can see it.
Okay. Okay. Good. So the idea behind this session is I would like to kind of demonstrate how we can create command line interfaces or also known as CLI very easily using GoLang as a tool set. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to kind of demonstrate at a very basic level. I'm trying to take a practical example and try to showcase how CLI actually comes in very handy when we are doing any kind of automation or when we are doing CRE kind of SRE kind of work. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a command line interface which will basically connect to pet store and help us to kind of deal with pet store very easily using CLI. So pet store is what? So pet store is basically uh, uh, you can say sample API hosted by Swagger. And in this, it has got so many features like you can create pets, you can get pets by status, and then you can do store related activities, you can do user related activities. So it is a very well documented API. So this is very heavily used when people want to learn API, any kind of thing related to API. So this is what I'm also going to use. So I'm going to use this API to kind of interact with Pet Store. And I'm not going to implement everything. The only thing I'm going to implement is a kind of find pets by status. So for example, if you want to know whether there is any pending or there are 2, 3 status you can use to find the pets like available, pending or sold. So this is what I'm going to do. Any questions so far, or I can start?
Ankur, this CLI is something like what we have for the specific tools like AWS CLI, Azure
Yeah,
CLI.
it's exactly same. So you can correlate it with Helm. So Helm makes it very easy, right? Helm install, Helm upgrade, and you are good. Correct.
Okay.
So whatever I'm going to show you, something a kind of same thing is used by Helm as well. So whatever I'm going to show you, same thing Helm also uses in its core. So they also use Go and they also use the framework which I'm going to talk about. And they use same framework to create CLIs, what I'm going to use today.
Hmm.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project. And so I have my ID available. So I'm using GoLang as ID. So you can choose anyone. And I have set go root as 1.20.6. So this is basically nothing but a GoLang project, a GoLang version which I'm going to use. So let's say I give my CLI a name as pet store, for example, CLI. So I want to create a pet store CLI for myself. So when I create, it will basically create a project for me. And this is nothing but an empty project. So when we want to move forward, it basically creates a Go mod for me automatically. So pet store CLI, Go mod is nothing but how modules are created. Okay. So just give me a moment. Let me open what all we are going to do. So we are going to use few tools, and those tools is what will going to help us to build our CLI properly. So what I'm going to do is I've already created a README, which I'm going to copy and paste. And this README will help you to understand what we are going to develop step by step. Okay. So this is what we are going to do. So we are going to, so let's take a use case, right? I am a DevOps person. I'm employed by Pet Store, and I want to basically create a CLI for my end user so that for that person it will be very easy. So what we are going to do, we are going to use GoLang. We are going to use an open source module called Cobra. So Cobra is a framework in GoLang which helps us to create CLIs very easily. It does all the boilerplating for us, and then we just have to code our business logic. And since we work with the CLI, at times we have to also work with configuration files and environment variables. For example, Helm, if you take as an example, Helm has some environment variable. Helm uses kubeconfig file, correct? So to make this part easy, there is a framework from same person called Viper. So this Viper basically helps you to deal with CLIs very efficiently. Now, we are also going to use a command line tool called OS API CodeGen. So this basically what it does is if you have to be precise, if you have open API specification with you, it will create boilerplate code for client for you very easily and smoothly. It can also create server code, but for our case, we are going to generate client code. And then since I will be dealing with pet store, it will give me some output. So I want to use that output and show it properly in my command line, right? So I'm going to use GoPretty, which is another a tool which will output the text in CLI in, you can say, a very beautiful way. Okay. So first thing is already done. So as you can see, mod is already initialized. So you can see go mod file, right? So it is already initialized for me. So I can move on to next step. So what I'm going to do is, end of the day, since you have to use all these things, right? You have to basically download the dependencies. So these are the commands which you have to execute. It will basically download all the dependencies for you. So in what I'm doing is I'm using WSL for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use and show you what exactly happens. So when I copy this command and then do it, it will basically try and get latest version of this library from Git. Okay, so this is the package. Same way, I'm going to get latest version of Viper as well. So we need to get these things in my, you can say, project. Okay, then I also want to use GoPretty, so I'm going to get GoPretty as well. Okay, so when you execute this command, it basically goes and modifies your Go mod and add all the things as an indirect dependency in your Go module. So this is like dependency management, what you do in, let's say Java Maven, right? So Maven is a dependency management, or you can also call it as YAM. So whatever you want to download, it will download it for you, and then it will also download the dependencies on your behalf. Okay. Till this point, any questions?
No.
Okay. So to make our life easy, I'm going to install these two tools. So these two tools are basically nothing but they will help me to they will give me two CLIs, or you can say another command lines, which will help me to kind of make my life as a developer easy. Developer, DevOps, whatever you call. So when you do this, it will basically install and it basically saves stuff in Go bin. So there is a bin directory where all the Go command goes. So it basically saves there. So if you really want to see where exactly it goes, I'm going to open another instance, and then here you will find a folder called Go. So when you go inside Go, you will find a folder called bin. So under this bin, you will find those two CLIs present. So when you add this into your path, you can execute this. So for example, if I want to use oapi dot code gen, and let's say version, it will tell me the version. Okay, so it is not telling version. I have to do maybe -v. I don't know what. Okay. So you see, this has shown me the version. Okay, so this is how your CLI actually looks like. So whenever you do, right, it will show it like this only, whatever you're going to create.
Mm-hmm.
So till here, I hope everything is clear, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, this concludes our step 2, where we have downloaded all our dependencies. Okay, now what we have to do is we have to basically create our folder structure, how we really want to organize our code. So this is what we are going to deal in the step 3. So what I'm saying is, let's create some directories. Like we'll create a directory called CMD. So this directory will contain all the command related codes for you. So all the commands will go inside. Okay. Then I'm going to create a directory called package. So this is nothing but it will store all my external packages with respect to uh, what we want to really share as a library. Okay. So, and then you can also create a package called internal if you want to store something which you want it to kept private and you don't want others to import technically. Okay, so my pet store will be technically external because I want a pet store to be extended. So inside package, I am going to create another directory called pet store. So this directory is the place where I'm going to keep my open API specification, and I'm going to use OAPI client to OAPI code gen library to generate the boilerplate code for me. Okay. So this is what we have to do as a step 3. So I'm going to create CMD where my commands will go. I will create package under which all my packages will come. If I really need, I can create internal as well if I want to put something there. Okay. So this concludes our step 3. Any questions so far?
No, Ankur.
No,
It's
no.
okay.
Okay. So let's go to step 4. So here what we'll do is we are basically going to I will show you how easy GoLang makes our life. So it takes care of lots of boilerplate code for us. So for that, what we need a YAML file. Okay, so that YAML file should be a specification uh, of my pet store API. So pet store API looks like this. They have a Swagger file technically. Since it is from Swagger, they love to create Swagger. So this is the Swagger definition of my entire pet store. So Swagger also comes with Swagger Hub, which can help you to actually export the Swagger file into Open API specification. So this is what I did. So I went into Swagger Hub and I kind of imported this you can say pet store Swagger, and then I exported it in Open API format because I want to use Open API specification. So this is what I did. I went inside. You can see here Ankur Nima 1, right? So here I have created this Swagger pet store, and then this pet store is what I exported. So I imported this like this, and then while saving, you can convert it to OpenAPI 3. So this is what I did. So after doing this, I got this YAML file. So let me see where that YAML file is. Okay, so this is my pet store YAML file. So this YAML file is an OpenAPI 3 specification. I'm going to use this YAML file to generate boilerplate code on my behalf. Okay, so how to do that? So just to kind of, I'm doing a split so that it will be easy to for me to copy the commands which I've already created. So what I'm going to do is I am going to kind of clear my screen here. I am going to go inside package and pet store because this is the place where my Swagger file, sorry, OpenAPI file is present. And then I'm going to use this command. Okay, so I'm going to give my package a name. So for example, I do this package and I say pet store. Okay, so this is my package name. And since I don't want to generate server, right, server code, so I'm going to say I want to only generate types and client on my behalf. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to say I want to generate only types and client. And then I'm going to give pet store YAML file. So this will generate the code for me, and I'm going to send this code to petstore.yaml. Sorry, petstore.gen.go. So why I'm marking it as gen, because this is generated. So you don't have to modify this file at all. So it will always be auto generated for you from this YAML file. So this is what the intention is by giving it a .gen specifier. So when I do this, you will find that you get a file here. So when you open this file, you will see good amount of code is generated for us automatically. So it has basically converted entire stuff into the code which you are going to use very easily. Okay, so here you can see it has created my constant. It has created some order status. It has created some pet status, and then it has given some more status for me. It has created my responses. All the structures are created. So structures, if you are familiar with Java, structure is kind of similar to class definition, where we define setter getter, right? This entire code is generated for me. So what it also does, it basically gives me a boilerplate code to kind of generate. Okay, let me import this. So this needs to be imported. So once you import anything, you have to sync dependencies. Once you sync dependencies, your Go mod gets modified, and it will go somewhere here in the top. You see, I got the entry here suddenly. So it is currently fetching dependencies for me.
Ankur, what was there in that petstore.yaml?
So in petstore.yaml, we have the API definition. So this is the open API format in which you define how your API will look like. So you basically add your tags, you add all the possible paths. So for example, this is one path, right? Pet ID and then upload image. This pet ID will come from outside as a
Mhm.
path variable. Okay, so this will basically give everything about your API. What will be the response? What all is possible? What all security things you get, like what all method it supports. So for example, just to give you a context, so whatever you are seeing here, you will is basically coming from this file only. So for example, I want to kind of get pets find by method, right? So here I can add value and it will show me pets. So for example, if I say try it out and I say I want to get all the pets which got sold. Okay. So response, I will get 200 and I will get a JSON out of it. So when I execute, I get JSON like this. So these are the pets which got sold off. So this is what API is going to return. So I want to handle this from my command line,
Mhm.
or you can say Go program. So I want this JSON to be read and then to be parsed and then do some business logic around it. So this is what my intention is.
Okay.
So for that only, what we are doing is, so, but if you want to convert everything into GoLang, right, you have to write this entire code, whatever you are seeing here, right? So this entire code you have to kind of write this entire code to interact with PetStore API using GoLang.
Mhm.
Now, this is like there is already a framework which has done everything for me, right? So I just need to import this client and use it. So that basically saves you a good amount of time. So if you have a well-defined API, you can convert this API into a client very easily these days. And that is why specification and standardization matters. Since it is already standardized using Open API, someone has written a framework to kind of parse it and create all the required boilerplate code, which I am going to use it. For example, Spring. Now, if you don't have Spring, you have to write so much code to work with Java applications, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is what I'm doing. It's kind of it will help me to just directly start consuming stuff. So this is how speed comes, right? And that is where open source project comes in very handy. They help a lot.
Okay, one last question, Ankur. Like this petstore.yaml, the content, I'm sorry, I lost it somewhere. So from where we get this? Like how do we
Uh,
get this YAML?
so this is a public API I'm consuming, right? So
Uh-huh.
this is the API definition Swagger is already exposed. Okay, so what I
Uh-huh.
have done is I have taken this swagger.json file because Swagger is smart beer format, but I want open API format. So I'm going into Swagger Hub where they give me capabilities to convert an API
Okay.
into open API specification. So I converted into open API specification and downloaded it. So I
Okay, when
did
we
this
download it,
yesterday
it
too.
is the YAML. Okay.
No,
Uh-huh.
this is a JSON, right? So end of the day, this can also be saved as YAML if you want. So you can export this as YAML.
Mm-hmm.
But point is, it will be Swagger YAML, right? Swagger
Mm-hmm.
2.0. I
Mm-hmm.
want Open API style format because the library which I am using basically can parse Open API and generate client stuff for me.
Okay, got you.
Now, Swagger Hub also gives you this capability. You can create client SDK by this also. Here you can go into Go. It will download everything for you by creating the way they basically created using Swagger, right? So they also provide this feature. But crux is nowadays, if you well define your API, creating client is very easy. Okay.
Okay.
So this is what I am also doing. I am using this YAML file and I'm generating this Go. So I just have to run this command OAPI code gen package. I just want to give it a package name. And then I want to generate only types and client here because I don't want server because I'm using a existing server, right? And then I'm just generating in form of a this file. So here you will find it got package as pet store.
Mm-hmm.
So any other question?
It's okay.
Renuka,
No.
do you have any question?
No, Ankur, all good.
Hema, do you have any question?
One question I have. What
Mhm.
is the feature of this dot gen you said?
This is just to let others know that this is auto generated. You see code generated by this. Don't modify. It will get regenerated. So whenever there is a change, this will get overwritten whatever you write. So this file is automatically generated.
Okay, so
So
we
it's a boilerplate
can.
code generated. So if you execute this 10 times, 10 times this same file will get generated. So if I go and modify something here, it will get overridden. Let's say if I add one more constant here,
Mm-hmm.
it will not, it is since it is not coming from this petstore.yaml, when I regenerate, that change will be overridden. So
Okay,
that is why when you add .gen, right? So this is just to let other users know that it is a generated file, you don't have to touch it. You just consume it as it is.
okay.
Okay, so that is what the overall idea is. Okay, so any other question?
And you said boilerplate.
Yeah,
What?
boilerplate code means the code which is generated for you, which
Which
caters
is
to
still in
stand.
progress.
Yeah, no, it's boilerplate code is like uh, this is not the business logic. This is the thing which helps you to execute business logic. For example, if you are using Spring and you use Spring Boot, why you use Spring Boot? Because Spring Boot has got lots of boilerplate code which abstract lots of under the hood stuff for you, features and facilities. It gives you capability where you go and directly write to business logic and you don't have to worry about how it will get executed. So for example, if I have to create this petstore.gen.go on my own, I had to write close to almost 2000 line of code. Now I cannot do it in one day, right? So what I will do, I will start one function at a time, and then it will start from 10 lines, 20 lines, 50 lines. It will go to end of the day 2500, 700 lines, correct? But why do you want to write if a framework can generate this code automatically for you? So this is what we call boilerplate code. So boilerplate code means the code which is auto-generated for you, which you can consume with bare minimum modification or no modification also.
Yeah, it's kind of this kind of template,
Yeah, it's kind
predefined
of a
template.
template, predefined template. So it will read this YAML, it will, using the predefined template, it will generate the entire code, client code and everything for you, including the structures, and then you just consume it. I will show you how we are going to consume it later on. Okay.
Just contain at all, we have to modify it accordingly. Right.
Actually, Sam, we don't even have to modify content. We just have to consume it. This is the easiest
Consume it.
part. I will show you how easy it becomes, right? So this
Okay.
is what I have generated. Okay, so this basically concludes my fourth part where I'm basically generating a pet store client. Now let's go with the actual stuff which we really want to do. And that is our command line, because we want to create CLI, right? So we have to create CLI here. So this is what we are going to do. So I'm going to basically create here also, it will basically create a boilerplate code for me for easy work. So I have to create the entire command line, right? So I have to write lots of code, which will anyways take time, and everyone runs generates CLI similar type. So I'm going to use an existing framework like Springwork has given you framework, right? Same way I'm going to use Cobra framework. Name is very funny, Cobra, and their logo is Cobra only, the snake Cobra. So to work with it, what we have to do is we have to basically go to our root folder. This is the place where we'll go, and I've created a CMD folder, right? So I'm going to use another CLI called Cobra CLI. So Cobra CLI, if you do H, it will show you what all it supports. Okay. So this is how our command line actually looks like. So it says it's the CLI library for Go that empower application, and then its usage. So you can use Cobra CLI and you can give a command. You can add a command. You can generate auto completion. You can generate help, and you can init. So what I want to do, I want to initialize the Cobra application, correct? Cobra itself has given you a CLI to make life easy. Okay, so now you will see the usage. So I will do Cobra CLI and I'm going to do init. And while doing init, I want to add few other stuff. Like I want to add license and author. And I also want to integrate it with Viper. So these are the facilities it provides out of the box. So I'm going to use it. So I'm going to say I'm going to be the author. And I also say I want license to be Apache license. So whatever gets generated, add Apache license on top of it and enable integration with Viper framework. So this is what this line means. Okay. So when I say enter, it will basically do some magic in the background. And then you will suddenly see that I got a main file here. Previously it was not there, right? So I got main file, and this main file, it has basically imported the command, and it has kind of created the main, and then it has basically called command.execute. So this is what it will execute for running my entire application. Okay. Now under CMD, it has created a root.go. So this is nothing but a root command. Okay. Here you can add some description to it. Like I can say, this is my pet store CLI. You can add a short description. You can add a long description. And then this will basically, what it will do, it will call a function called execute, because if you see here, you're calling cmd.execute. So cmd.execute, it is going to call this function. And what it will do, it will basically execute the root command. So whatever command we are creating, right? It will execute this command. And if there is no error, it will basically quit. Okay. And then what I'm also doing is I'm also initializing the command with the init function. And I'm saying on initialize, you call init config. Okay, so init config is nothing but another function. And I'm also adding a flag called config file. Since I'm doing Viper, I want config file to be used, right? So for example, this is a config file. So this config file can contain some configuration which you really want to use. For example, let's say in kubectl you use kube config, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And your kube config has got a name default called config, which resides under .cube folder, correct?
Yes.
How did it happen? They have used the same thing, Cobra only. So they have added a persistent flag and then say you can add config file to override it. If not, it will basically get config file from home directory. Okay. So init config, I am doing this. So I am saying if config file is not equal to empty, you set config file directly. If
Mm-hmm.
it is empty, then you try to get config file by first getting the home directory. In the home directory, search for this file. Okay. And then use it. So for example, if I go to home directory, I create a file called, okay, so I'm in my home pwd. So this is my home, right? I create a file this, and in this I create a token for later use, okay, in YAML format. Okay, so this is what I'm going to use. So why I'm using this? Because if you see this definition, they have mentioned if you want to use API key, use this as a API key for running the authenticated flow. So this is the token which I'm going to use. So I'm going to add this token here. I'm going to save it. So what will happen if config file is not passed from outside? It will get this config file from the home directory in YAML format.
Mm-hmm.
It will also try to get the environment variable. So whatever name you pass, it will try to fetch it by environment variable also. So this is again my boilerplate code. So I have not yet written anything in my with respect to my business logic. Now, if I want to execute this file right now, what will happen? Go run main.go, right? So it will only print long description what is there. Okay, a longer description that spans multiple lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is what it is printing. Okay, so I want to technically change this, right? I want to make it little bit informative. So what I will do, I will change the short description here, which I've already pre-created. I've also added a long description. So I'm going to change the long description as well. Okay, and when I rerun this, now you will see description has changed. CLI demo, so I call it CLI demo. So let me make it. So what I created has got name called CLI demo. So let me change it back. So pet store CLI. So if I rerun this now, it will say pet store CLI is a command which can be used to interact with pet store red server. For more details, check this URL. So this has right now created my CLI for me. Okay, so this is what it is all about. So I have created my CLI and I have added the initial structure. Now what I will do is I'm going to add my first command called get. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. So let's start with step number 6, that is creating a get command. Okay, so for example, let's say you want to have a CLI called pet store and you want to get pet details, correct? So that is going to be the easiest use case, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what I want to do is I want to have a feature like pet store hyphen CLI space get space, let's say pets. When I do, I should get the detail of pets. When I do store, I should get the details of store. And when I do user, I should get the details of user, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this will mimic if I'm interacting with pet or I'm interacting with store or I'm interacting with user APIs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pet store and user. So I'm going to create 3 commands. So this is just to show you how commands are created, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all add my top level command, that is get, which should be sub command of root, right? So you don't want to have a new command called get, right? You want to have pet store hyphen CLI space get, correct? Like for example, you have helm install. So helm is a root command, install is a sub command, right? So this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to first of all add my get command. So the moment I press enter, it will add another stuff called get for me. So you see, I got get this one. And let me just to kind of show you what it does. So here I am going to just add a line as a short description so that you can see some more details when I'm going to run this again. So it also gives you a feature where you can actually say, when I do get, it should print get call. So this is where your business logic comes. But I don't want this, right? Why not want this? Because my get is my kind of a arbitrary command. I don't want to execute this command at all because I want to execute further command. So I'm instructing get. Then I want to instruct what do I want to get, right? So executing this command doesn't make sense. Correct?
Okay.
Tell me, Sam, will it make sense if I do pet CLI get and then I expect it's to do something? It will not do anything, right?
Yeah, it won't.
It doesn't make sense. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this part because I don't want this to get executed at all. Okay. So what it will do, it will basically just get the root command and add get command as a sub command to it. Okay. And then after that, I'm not doing anything. So I don't want to even do any kind of flag also because I don't need any flag. Okay, so this is what I have done. So I have created this command. Now, when I'm going to run this, you will see it will change. So let me show you what will happen. So you have seen here, right? So this is how Cobra shows you its CLI, correct? Now you see how our CLI will look like. Now it looks kind of similar.
Yes.
So pet store CLI is a command which can be used to interact with pet store red server. Usage, pet store CLI, and then command. Available commands, completion help. It is not showing get command because get command right now does nothing. Okay, so you are not seeing it right now, but gives you 2 command available. Completion, generate the auto completion script. Help, it will kind of help you to do with it. But we want config. You remember I have added a persistent flag called config. So here you see config. When you add this config, you add a config file. It also tells what where exactly your file will reside by default. And then -h will give you help and then other stuff. So now let's say if I say get and I say h, it will tell me about this one. Right? So use this command to get details about pet store inventory and users. Correct? Now I have added my sub command under which I want to add 3 more commands. So this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to add these 3 commands where I'm going to make parent as get cmd because I want my get to be parent of those commands, right? So I'm going to add this. Now you see you will get a pet here. Now when I'm going to do this, it will going to create you can say store for me. And let's say when I do this, it will basically create a user for me. Now when I re-execute this main again, now you will see it will tell you that there is a get command. It says the short description get command to get details about pets, stores, and users. Now you can see, right? Now when I do get h, you will see that get supports 3 more subcommands. pet store CLI get and then command. It got 3 commands: pet, store, and user. And you can add the description, whatever you want. And then global flag is still coming because it's a persistent flag, which is at the top of the root command. So it is kind of drilled down to everyone. Correct? So till here, Renuka and Sam, does this overall thing make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change some details about pet so that it make more sense. So when I go to pet, so here what I'm going to do, I'm going to basically change the description so that it make more sense. So this command helps in getting pets based on helps. Pet APIs. Okay. Now here I would be doing all my business logic with respect to pet. Okay. So this is what I changed. So this basically concludes my section step 6, where I'm adding all the boilerplate code. Okay, so now let's start with our actual business logic where we want to interact with our pet API and do something out of it, right? So I'm going to do the needful here. So what we need, first of all, we need a client to interact with, correct? We have created a boilerplate code, but we have not yet created any client, right? So I want to create client and I want to use this client in every command. So if you are interacting with store, you can interact with store. When you are interacting with pet, you can interact with pet. So your client should go in root itself so that it stays there, right? Make sense? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to basically, first of all, declare my variable, which I'm going to use so that it is kind of available outside. Okay. So I'm going to add this variable. So this pet store, I'm going to import pet store. So what it did, it basically imported pet store. And I've declared, okay, I want pet store and I want client with responses because I want to ensure that I get the response back. Correct? So what I've done, I've declared a variable. Okay, I want to create a client. Now I have to create a client, right? So when should I create client? When I'm initializing it. Make sense? Correct?
Initializing.
So this is the init, right? Init will happen when your command line actually starts. So that is the when you will initialize the client and use it everywhere else. Correct? So this is what I'm going to do. I am basically going to first of all get the token. So you remember we need token to kind of start working, right? So I want to get token. Okay. How will I get token? Since I'm using Viper, it will communicate with this file automatically if it exists. And you have seen we have this file exists, right? So when I do dot pet store CLI, it has this token and it has this value. So I want this value, correct? So this will basically ensure that I get the value out of it, the file automatically. Okay. Now what I want to kind of communicate with the API and authenticate myself. So I need to pass in the token, right? So this OS API has got some security providers built in. Okay. So there is a security provider, it provides or ships, which is called new security provider bearer token. So what we'll do, I will get this token, I will pass this token, it will give me a bearer token interceptor to use with. Okay. So if you see, it basically returns a type of security provider bearer token. Now, what I will do is I will create my client and I will explain what I'm going to do. So here, okay, I have not yet. Okay, let me add this part also. So here what I'm saying, if you get any error, you throw a panic and show whatever error you get. So this is what this line means. Now I'm creating a client. I'm saying pet store.new client with response. So I'm saying I want a client which will send response back. And I'm saying connect to this URL. And whenever you connect, you basically uh, uh, add bearer token to every request, whatever you are sending. So this is what I'm telling you. So this is a feature provided by the underlying under the hood framework itself. So they create a function called with request editor function. So when you go here, they create this function. So it's a callback function. So what it will do, it will basically, whenever you are sending, it will change the request on the fly. You see, it allows setting up callback function, which will be called right before sending the request. This can be used to mutate the request. That means before sending, you want to change the request. So what I want, whenever I send a request, I want to ensure that I pass in my username and password, or I pass my token. Correct? You will pass token, right? So that's how you will authenticate. So for example, let's say you are interacting with your Gmail API and you want to read email. So you have to first pass in your username and password, right? Without that, it cannot open your mailbox to you, correct?
Right.
So, so while sending request, what I'm saying is before even sending request, I want to ensure that this bearer token is passed. This is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So what this will do, this will basically attach the authorization header. You see here, it will attach it. So this is what it will do. And last but not least, what I'm going to do is, since I've created a variable, I want to assign my client which is created to that variable so that it can be used in other APIs. So this part, whatever changes I have done, will what it will do, it will basically create a client for me to interact with later. So this is my central code where I am saying I am creating a client. Any other sub command can access this client and interact with the API server. This is what I'm saying. Understood? Now I'm going to add my final logic where I'm going to basically modify the pet.go so that I add everything whatever is required. So when should I kind of execute my business logic? Here only, right? Whenever this function is called, I should execute. So for example, right now, if I want to do, okay, so let me show you what will happen. So when I say go get pets, what it will do, it will first of all read the CLI file. Sorry. So when I do this, you see it has printed pets called. It also says I'm using this config file, right? So this line got executed, correct? Pets called, pets called.
Right.
So that means this is the place where I'm going to add my business logic, correct? So what is my business logic? I should first create the, I need, first of all, I need to pass some variable, right? Because if you see the CLI, let's say I want to kind of in pets, I want to find by status. Okay, so I want to execute this CLI. So this CLI needs what? It needs a status to be passed. And the status should be one of these three things, correct? So I need to pass this, right? So I need to create my request. And for that, I need to pass this parameter from outside. So as a user, I should provide whether I want sold, whether I want pending, or whether I want available pets, correct?
Okay.
So to do that, what I can do is I can add a flag to it. Okay. So here they have commented you can add some flags. So you can add a local flag. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a local flag. Okay, so first thing what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a variable called status because I want to capture the status value which is coming in. correct? So I'm going to add a variable called status. Now I want to get this value from user, correct? So one way is you write entire logic where you say, okay, print something in command line and then capture details from user. You have to do all these things, right? That is the standard way. I think when Sam, you were practicing, you might have done when you create CLI tool. Now with Viper and with Cobra, it becomes much more simpler. What I say is, I add this line. I say, add a flag, which will return me a string variable. Okay. And whatever value you get, you attach it to and status. Okay. So and status is nothing but you are basically adding value to this status variable. What it should show as a long variable name as status, and it should show shorthand as S, and then it gives you some command line. So if I want to show you what it basically does, when I do -h, you get, okay, you get this, okay, -s, status string, provide status value. It can be available, pending, or hold. So what you can do, pet store CLI, get pet, and then you can add a flag. I want to do -s, and then let's say I say available. So I want this flag to be printed under status. Right. So for example, let's say I want to show you what actually happens. So what I will do, fmt dot let's say I want to print status. Okay. So when I do this now, you will see nothing. But when I do -s and let's say available, it will print available. You see, this is getting passed and getting automatically mapped, right? So now as a user, I'm getting the status from outside. Now I will add a business logic. So first what I need to do, I need to create my parameters. Okay. So parameters, what will happen is, let's say I remove this part and say I want to get params. So pet store find pets by status params, what it will do, it will help me to create parameters for my pet store API, whatever it accepts. So it basically accepts a slice, or you can say array, of multiple statuses. Okay, so right now I'm going to do only one status for initial demo purpose. So what I'm doing, I'm saying, so if you go here, right, it says this is a structure. It has got one field called status, and that status is nothing but array of this status. What is this? This is nothing but a string type. So it is like, even though this is name, it is called find pets by status param status. So this is what it is. Okay, so this is what I want. So I've added this parameters. Okay, after adding parameters, I want to basically get the detail out. So I have a client. So I'm going to use that client and I'm going to pass in this parameter to get the value. So I have a client where it says find pets by status with response. Okay. And I'm saying I will use context.background. That means this request will run in background, and I'm passing this as a parameter. So the function's definition says it accepts this as a parameter, and then it will return this as a response. So when you see response, it basically returns body, response object, JSON format, XML format. And JSON format, like this is another structure where you say JSON, it should look like this. So I've created a structure where it will show me whatever this output should look like and how it has derived. So when you go down, you will find pets. So pet has got ID. ID is of basically type int64. Then it has got category. Category is a subtype which has got ID and name. ID is integer, name is string. Then this name is nothing but string. Photo URL is like, if you want, it can send you a URL of the photos. So it looks like this, order map and then photo URL. It also returns tags, okay, if there are any tags, and then it runs the status also, pet status in the store. So this is how it has created this structure. Category, ID, name, photo URL. This is nothing but another structure, which has got ID and name as a parameter. Okay. So can you see how easy it has made our life?
Yeah, it's already created
Yes.
all of them.
Now I'm just utilizing what I'm doing. I'm just calling the function. Okay, boss, you are there. Find me pets by passing this as a parameter. And the moment I did, I can basically check whether I have any error or not. Okay. And then I'm going to get the pets out. So since you have already seen, it returns JSON, right? And this JSON is of type pet, array of pets, right? So I'm going to get this here and I'm going to loop inside this pet. And then I'm going to print the output. So here what I can do, I can basically go here and I can create a for loop. So this part I'm going to explain after some time. So I'm saying this is a range, right? So under this, I want to get one pet out and I can print that pet detail. So for example, just to show you what it will do, I can do println, and then I'm going to say, for example, ID, comma, pet dot ID. So this is going to give me string value. I want its value back. Comma, I'm going to say space, a pipe, comma, let's say pet dot name. Okay. So this is what I want to print. So, okay. So this is what I want to do technically, right? So now when I'm going to run this, and let's say I want to get all the pets which are sold, you look at all these pets which are already sold. Just to see, let's say I go here and I re-execute the same stuff. Sold, right? Someone has modified it. So for example, this is banana. See this one and this one.
Then some more bananas.
8,000. Nah, but you see this and this, right? I'm getting it from here only. So this is what I'm showing you. Correct? So here I have created a command which will interact with pet store based on -s, can get me all the pets which are already sold. Like 17. Okay, let me try this again. So it basically, so this is a very heavily used API for testing purpose. So people keep using it again and again. So it may change anytime.
I think this is coming now.
Coming, right?
Yep.
So ID 68 bagworm, right? So now, but you see, this doesn't look very good, right? In terms of API, let's say if you are interacting with CLI, this will not look very beautiful to you. So there is another framework which is called Pretty. You remember I told I'm planning to use Pretty also, right? So I will show you how we can use it. So basically what you have to do, you have to here when you are executing, right? Before writing, so let me first add some headers, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add some headers to the table which I want to show. Okay. So okay, let me add first of all the dependency. Okay. So I will go to ped. Under import, I'm going to import my table. Okay. And the moment I sync dependency, this will basically get synced. And then this table stuff will basically go away. Okay. So now you see it is not complaining, right? So I've added a header. I'm saying I want to have pet ID and pet name as my headers. Okay. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to basically create a table function. So here after this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a table function called TW. I'm going to append all my headers to this table function. Okay. I want to add multiple rows because rows are dynamic, right? It can be 1, 2, 10. So I'm going to create a slice called rows. And then here I'm going to, instead of using this, I'm going to use this. So I'm going to append rows to my slice. Okay, and I'm going to add it in this format. So I'm going to get the pet ID, I'm going to pet name. Okay, then I'm going to append all these rows to my table function which I've created. I'm going to add my index column. I'm going to add my title. So this is what I'm doing. I'm adding index column, that is 1. I'm going to add title. It should be status plus pet details, and I'm going to render it. So when I do this, and when I re-execute the same stuff, it will look a little bit different now.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like this.
Okay.
Sold pet details. These are the pets. Now it looks much better, right?
Mm-hmm.
From user experience point of view.
Yeah, it looked like a normal CLI output.
So this basically concludes my small demo how we can actually create CLIs. Okay, so what I will do is I will stop recording. Before that, any other questions?
No?
Nothing from my end.